Slipping into enemy lines, gathering crucial information, being an absolute nuisance. This is the essence of being a lurker. But how do you properly play this sneaky role? First, let me introduce myself. I'm Briggy Ninja, coach for Affinity Esports with about 2 years of coaching experience under my belt. I don't believe in charging for my service, so my coaching is entirely free. All you have to do is join the Discord, read the VOD submission rules, then tune in live on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hope to see you there. Alright, so lurking does get a bad rap. I will say this, bottom of my heart, top of my soul, it does get a bad rep. There's nothing worse than calling a full execute towards A with a lurker B ramp. It's just frustrating for both sides. This guy doesn't feel like he gets to play the game. These guys feel like they got cheated out of an execute because they did do it with 4 players instead of the usual 5 suspects. I totally get it. I understand where this like anti-lurk thing comes from, where it's like lurking is strong. It is, don't get me wrong. It is a strong skill to have in your arsenal and it can help, but a lot of people either A, overdo it, right? They do it too much, or B, they don't do it properly. Because this is not lurking, right? You sitting club and holding ramps, that's not lurking. You're holding space, right? You're holding control. This is not lurking, right? And so you're not taking risk. Lurking inherently is a very risky thing to do, right? And so because it's a risky thing to do, when we do it, the potential benefit has to exceed the risk, right? And so let's come up. There are primarily 2 reasons why we lurk. One, we want to win not just this round, but the next round. Like if the lurk is good enough to win 2 rounds, it's worth doing, right? And how do you like determine whether that is? Well, you just look at eco. Let's say like their average buy is around 3,900. And this is like them having to full buy to contest with you, whatever the round is. And if you win, they get knocked down to a low buy, right? Or even a full save, right? And these rounds are really hard to win. These rounds in particular are so hard to win because, I mean, you don't have the same amount of resources. You don't have the guns. Yeah, you can win them. Don't get me wrong. Every round is winnable if you play your cards right or perfect. But a lot of times rounds, even when you try your best, even when you have the best place, are still losable. You still lose them. Like sometimes you can have a great play, but they have better execution. They have better guns. They can do a lot more of their play. And so like those are the rounds that get a lot more value from a lurk, like the potential risky lurk play, than any sort of normal round. Like if they have an economic advantage, you don't want to take a risk because guess what? I mean, even if you win the round, which is not very likely if you're going to be lurking a lot, it doesn't have that potential win back versus like you start the lurk, you die, you lose the round, and then now you're put on a lower buy that you can't really. Now you're kind of in a cycle of I'm trying to lurk to find my kills. I can't get kills. What is happening? And so like that's like the first thing. And the second one is you found a weakness in the enemy setup and the enemy defense, right? Because lurking is a pretty much attack heavy skill. Flanking exists on defense. You can lurk as a defender, but it's not the same, right? It can be, but traditionally it's a more attacker favored like skill, right? And because of that, that's like one of the big things. Like if you know that these guys don't hold street, they play fast rotate through spawn. Like if you know this, which you could like determine by like setting up the game to your favor. Like you call, like you go A. How many people are A by the time you get there running full speed? 4 of them? They're probably fast rotating. There's no way they're not fast rotating. Where do they come from kind of matters as well. Like, are they coming more from Link, which means they rotate through mid, or through Flowers and Street, which means they rotate through records and like CT spawn. Those are things you have to consider. And then now it's like, okay, well, they're fast rotating. I'm down to just start a lurk. Sometimes people will just call it fake, but this is a prime time to lurk. If they're not controlling this space, walk it, take it. It's free, take it. If you identified that as a weakness and they're not covering that hole, just take it, please. Just do it. It'll save you so much time. And speaking of time, the timing of your lurk is really important. It's probably one of, if not the most important skills as a lurker. Of course, mechanical skills, like your communication, all important. Don't get me wrong, those are two very important skills, but the way you time your lurk matters. And so what triggers you to walk up? Like, what causes you to walk up? And the biggest thing, and like the easiest pattern to see, is when your team is making noise, right? When your team is taking aggressive space and aggressive control, that is when you walk. That is when you take space. That's when you take risk, because the enemies are preoccupied. Think about when you play defense and what happens when a lot of people are making a lot of noise. They're coming A. It's an A rush. Lots A. What does that trigger into you? If you're not a psychopath, your main objective is to strengthen A, because they're sending a lot of resources to A. And so what that looks like is typically people will shift over to help A, right? Either to hold the side or to play like a flood or fast retake, okay? And because that is fundamentally true and is only broken once your lurk has been discovered, a lot of the times teams will fall for the first lurk, right? Teams will fall for the first one. They shouldn't not fall for it. If they have this, they're too slow if they anticipate a lurk every round from a single player. Like, it doesn't make sense to lurk first round. You're on evil buy. You're taking a theoretical 1v something and you have no impact on the round, ideally, like normally. Like on average, you don't have impact. Sometimes you can find impact, but not really. Not as often as you probably think you do. And so because of that, that's like the biggest one. Like if you're ever lurking, your team makes noise, start walking. They're going to make noise running away. They're going to reinforce that area. They're going to make it stronger. Okay, so you're going to catch people leaving. That's why you have to have such good communication. You have to be able to talk, because now we're walking into dangerous territory. And now we can hear, right? This like listening circles like this or something. And you can hear people running flowers. You can kind of count. And it's like, there's a lot towards A. Guys, cancel, go back B. I'm going to catch people rotating, right? And then bam, bada bing, you probably win the round. And so, of course, when they come to you, now we have to identify whether or not we should be taking or avoiding those fights. You're lurking against the enemy team and people are coming at you. You can take the fight, right? Like you establish presence. But then what happens, right? After you take presence, you can't commit. Like you can't lurk anymore. Like you're known. You're known mid, and so your only option, realistically, because re-hitting is really, really not good, right? Because they're gonna get set up on you. They know your position, you're known. And so your real option is to relink with the team. And if you do commit to a late lurk, just know that you have to take a fight. There's no sneaking around. They know you're there. You have to just fight them. And a lot of it comes down to whether or not your pressure is good enough to like make this hit stronger. Like that's the only reason you would stay, is to make like you're drawing defenders to yourself instead of them going to site. That's the only way you would actually just like recommit towards mid. And so there are fights that we want to take. Like for example, if we're doors, we hear this guy rotating, they're making a ton of noise. Swing and just shoot this guy. That's totally fine. Does it also make sense to wait for them to cross and then you start walking up? Absolutely. But it just kind of depends on like who you're facing, how valuable that kill would have been to stop the rotate, how early it is in the round. Like there's a lot of factors that go into it, but just know like an actionable cause is like, we don't really want to take too many like early fights unless they're pushing us, right? If they're pushing us, take them. But ideally, we want to avoid like these early engagements that like are favored to them. Like if we hold like shops here, this is favored to us if they push shops. If we're holding mid top, this is super favorable towards us, or even like holding this off angle. Anything like that is like sick. But then like the fights we want to take is like if you're indoors and you see this guy here, take the fight. Like where are you going? Like you're gonna go back mid and then like you're still out of the play, right? And so you can have impact towards the mid, and now you're like this looming threat towards mid if you're lurking here that the enemy team has to watch out for. Like these guys can't start this like retake, or they can't like come out as a full unit because now there's like this backstabber force here. And so like somebody has to watch this, or they all have to go out, but they're all still like, they still understand that it's probably just a 4v4 and this guy's gonna come and fight us soon. And so eventually we'll have to look this way. And if it doesn't work out, let's say it turns into a 2v2, it's still a bad position for the attackers if they try to go out, right? Because now they're facing potentially 2 threats from like any of these angles. And so it makes sense that like when you are controlling space, it's easier. That's why we start here. Like this is easier to fight, but we don't want to fight into contested space because it's harder, right? Because we're the lurker, we're not using utility. Like as a lurker, you really don't want to be using your utility. Like initially, like once you're known, then it like all bets are off. Like if I'm arena lurking, I don't want to use the leer. It's a global ability. So like using this at any point feels really awkward because I don't want them to give up my position. But once my position is known, let's say you take this fight, you kill this guy, all bets are off. I'm flashing connector. We're going. Let's go. Let's fight. See, run them hands or something along the lines of like if you think that the play is correct to go connector, right? It depends on the game, but that's why it's like really important to understand this like versus like controlling space versus contesting. You want to fight when you're controlling space. You rarely want to fight when you're contesting, because when you contest space, you want to use utility, right? You want to use your blinds, you want to use your flashes, you want to use your smokes, you want to use your like utility, like anything that you have. Because it turns a disadvantaged fight into an advantaged fight, which is what we want when we're contesting space. But when we're controlling it, we're in the advantaged. We have the sight line. We will see them first. And it's easier to fight when you're just holding an angle versus when you're scaling, right? Because your crosshair can be placed properly. You like make the shots like super easier for you. Blah, 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 such and such and such on. I can keep going about that all day, but just know that those are like really important, and it kind of determines whether or not you should be taking those fights. And now another like interesting topic to like try to cover is, should you start the round lurking? Let's say pull the Reyna back, I just want to lurk B, rest of the team's going A. Should I start the lurk? Or let's say we took space A, they're like, this doesn't look good, and they left. Now you're a mid-round lurker. And so what's up with that? Like, should I start the round lurking or should I do it in the mid round? And the answer is it depends, but it's the start of the round. It's more proactive, right? You should have some level of control, or not control. Rather, you should have a understanding of the enemy's defense. Like if there's a hole, you should start lurking there immediately. Like you should just walk and take the space. And if you think you could take that space for free, walk it. Just keep going. They're not holding it. Keep walking. If they're not checking B long, walk all the way. Go tunnel. I don't care. Go. Take the risk. It's a risk that could win you the round. Like I'm through B. I didn't clear halls. I didn't clear Link. I'm in tunnel. All you have to do is worry about Link and Hall. Leave A. I'm killing the spawn players. And you get these free kills, right? Because your records, this guy doesn't expect you. You die. You like get out. And now it's a 5v4 with you planting the spike and you win. On average. There are rounds where you'll lose that, which is unfortunate. But usually you don't. But then like the mid-round ones are strategies that kind of failed you. Like you took space and you identified that this doesn't look good. Let's say that we did go A and we're a part of like a 3-man like A main take, right? We took A main space, they smoked us off, and it just looks and sounds like there's humans here, like 3. And this is losing. This is statistically losing. We're going into strong side because defending is easier than attacking. They have to use way less utility to stop us from coming out. And so because of that, we don't want to hit this. And so these 2 leave, but then it's like, okay, well now you're here inserted and you can hear their rotations. And now you can make that risky lurk play. It's not that we didn't force this lurk, but it just happened and you're in a good position for it. Some people will take like mid space. I think mid space is the most common example, and they'll get to like doors, or maybe they'll get here on box on art. And then it'll just be like, we have an advantage, but I'm really not feeling this hit, right? Like we were grouped up A main. This doesn't feel good. Now you're in these like lurk positions and you try to like find an opening. The cream of the creme of this whole thing is how risky can you be? Because if you don't take risk, you will receive no reward, right? In Valorant, every risk has its reward and punishment, right? A risky push down plaza door, like through doors into plaza, can net you like a free kill mid top, a free backstab art, or even like a continual like lurk towards shop. And it's a risk because now we're like we're doing a flank maneuver like on defense, or even like if we walked down art into connector, like we took this risk to catch a timing in a fight that they don't expect, and so the potential reward is great. But what if there's a guy here that's holding us? Like we walk up, they peek us. Like it's risky, you know, because we're not using utility, we're not taking space safely as we could, because you know we're not droning the space, we're not flashing the space, we're not we're dead seriously just walking the space. And so how much risk you think you can incur, and I honestly think more players should take more risk, but it's like the potential reward for these risky plays are so great that like if you stop ramps on your lurk in a ranked environment, you're not going to be successful. Why? Because while these guys are taking A main, you're here. B doesn't look appetizing, right? Because we're not here. So like these guys don't want to leave. They're just going to hit and they're going to lose and you're out of the play, and you feel like you're wasting your time. And of course, lurkers need to be mechanically gifted. So why don't you also watch this video on the relative unimportance of raw aim to impact your gameplay, and hopefully that helps you out. I'm Briggy Ninja. Thank you so much for watching. If you still are, good luck on the climb, and I'll catch you guys next time. Bye-bye.